Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I hope you're having an amazing day, because if you're having an amazing day, I'm having an amazing day. And if I'm having an amazing day, you too should be having an amazing day. Now, the first thing I'd like to do is to apologize to you guys for not having made a video for a week. It's been really busy on my end, Now, that's certainly no excuse for neglecting you guys, of course, but yeah, I've really been finding it very difficult to find time to make a video. But today I have a couple of hours free, so yeah, I'll be talking to you guys for a bit. In case you haven't realized, I'm actually a freelance English and literature tutor, so I teach the IGCSE syllabus and I teach IELTS as well, the International English Language Testing System for Adults, So, as you're aware, the term, we're well into the next term. It's 2023, so yeah, that's why I've been really busy, because my schedule's really packed. But make no mistake, I will find time for you guys, Now, capitalist brainwashing has basically conditioned us into associating the adjectives hardworking and diligent with moral. So basically, we ascribe positive connotations to these adjectives, and we do not look kindly upon words like laziness, nouns like laziness or sloth, right? The word laid back is supposed to be the positive connotation of being lazy. But nowadays, we always use it. We almost always use the word laid back in a negative sense. Like, for example, oh, he's too laid back, my workers are too laid back. So basically, under capitalist indoctrination, we have been trained to associate being diligent and hardworking as moral and being laid back as immoral. To me, I think that's a non sequitur, because there are lots of really hardworking people in the world who are absolute monsters. Like, you cannot be a lazy person and thrive in professions like journalism, law, and business, right? But the highest number of psychopaths do happen to be in these corporate professions, right? So there is no connection, there's no causation factor between being hardworking and diligent and being a moral person, right? Quite the contrary, a person who is a hippie, who's a pretty unambitious, laid-back fellow who just wants to bum around and play music, like the grasshopper in the story of Aesop's fables, the grasshopper and the ants, is far less dangerous, than any really hardworking dictator. Like, you if you want to be a successful dictator like Hitler, Idi Amin, Mussolini, or anyone like that, you simply cannot be lazy, right? If you want to oppress people successfully, right, you have to be quite diligent at that. So why is this? Why did we come to associate being laid back as bad and being diligent as moral, even though you don't necessarily have to be an immoral person to be laid back, and you don't necessarily have to be a moral person to be diligent, right? Well, I think it goes back all the way before capitalism, even in times of the feudal age, If you look back at the Christian 7 deadly sins, one of them being envy, you're not supposed to covet your rich neighbor's possessions, and the other being sloth. Basically, you're supposed to be hardworking. It's a moral failing in order to be laid back. Apparently, it seems that that these 7 deadly sins were meant to condition the population in order to be good little worker ants, being serving the feudal lord, right? So, in order to be a moral man of God, a peasant must be industrious, hardworking, and certainly not lazy, because God looks favorably upon hardworking workers, and that's how we come about Protestant work ethic, right? And that basically spilled over into capitalism, because as I've said in a previous video, capitalism is basically the evolved form of feudalism. It's certainly an improvement of feudalism, but it's nevertheless it carries the same dynamics of feudalism in many ways, right? You still answer to an overlord, your boss being your overlord, and the masses do not have um, political power, right? In the same way, the serfs did not have political power working under the feudal lord, right? So we've been conditioned by both feudalism and capitalism into associating being a slave or being hardworking as being moral, working hard in order to till someone's land or to increase someone's capital is considered a moral thing, while being economically unproductive, albeit harmless, is considered an immoral thing, right? And frankly speaking, it's a mentality that needs to go extinct, right? This idea that you've got to work yourself to death or in order to prove your morality, really. Now, please don't misunderstand this video. I'm not saying that you ought to do a dishonest day's job or you ought to shirk on your responsibilities, right? Like, I certainly would not shirk on my responsibilities as a teacher, for example. Um, as a person, as a transmitter of knowledge, whose children, or rather, who has been in whose hands the future generation has been entrusted, I certainly would not do a crappy job if you were to send your children to me for tutoring, right? That's certainly not what I'm saying, right? Because as a parent, you place your trust in me, believing that I will, I will be able to fulfill your children's academic needs and get your children the grade they want and hopefully instill some good values in them. And it would be immoral in order to betray that trust, right? But I'm not going to kill myself doing it. What that means is that I certainly set boundaries, right? For example, parents and students are both not allowed to text me after 9 p.m. Unless it's an absolute emergency. Let's say you're having a heart attack, then yeah, you can certainly contact me after 9 p.m. But after 9 p.m., it's my me time, okay? It doesn't mean that I'm lazy if I don't give my absolute, or rather, let me rephrase that. If I don't give my absolute, um, absolute devotion to my clients, right? By capitalistic standards, I might be construed as lazy, right? But I have to make time for myself as well, because I too have a life outside the classroom. I too have a life outside of YouTube, and I too have a life off social media, right? So, I'm not going to kill myself just to prove that I'm more hardworking or more industrious than other tutors, because I'm happy with what I've got, right? Um, I don't aspire to drive Porsches or BMWs or to live in four-story mansions. I'm pretty much happy with what I've got. That's why I find it bizarre that people would think that I'm a socialist just because, I'm unhappy with my life and I want more than what I've got. I'm actually really happy with what I've got, but I want others to enjoy the same kind of happiness that I do. Living, if I were to die tomorrow, I would just live life exactly the way I do today, yesterday, and the day after tomorrow. Nothing would change because I'm in perfect harmony with myself. And I hope to spread this flame of happiness to a million other candles, metaphorically speaking. So, yes, capitalism, as Will Smith said, has brainwashed us into buying things that we don't want to impress people we don't necessarily even like. But I'll go even further as to say that feudalism and capitalism have basically brainwashed us, in order to regard ourselves not as human beings, but rather as workhorses whose only value lies in how productive we are. And the less productive we are, the less value we have in our own eyes, right? And frankly speaking, that's an odious way to think, right? So by that logic, you'd also have to say that a child who's born mentally retarded and can never really be economically productive is basically worthless under capitalism, right? And I think too many people are um, measuring their worth by their economic production, how much they produce economically, as opposed to how happy they actually are. I'll tell you a story. My parents actually had a friend more specifically, because he's no longer among the living, who was a very, very successful pharmacist. More successful economically speaking than I can ever hope to be. I'm just a poor English teacher, but I'm happy. I'm so poor I can't even afford a shirt. You see, but still, I'm more or less satisfied with my life. Um, just give me a bottle of booze to drink and some simple food to eat, and I'm happy. But this man, was really, really, really a workhorse. From morning to night, he was basically all about the hustle culture. Because work gave this man's life meaning, right? Because he had no other meaning outside of work, right? And he believed that he would one day be able to enjoy his retirement when he had collected enough money to enjoy it, right? Well, as a matter of fact, he could have actually retired by the time he was 35, and that would have been he would have been quite well set for life by that point. He and his but unfortunately he kept wanting more and more and more, because he himself subscribed to this erroneous presupposition that we've all been trained to believe of finite resources and unlimited ones, right? Because under capitalism, we've also been brainwashed into believing that, if you're not ambitious, or if you don't aspire to own this and own that, that means you are unambitious. You're not a real man. You're just worthless, pretty much. You don't have a success mindset, pretty much. So guess what? Before his 40th birthday, a few months shy of his 40th birthday, this man dropped dead of a heart attack. And no one could have guessed that this man was going to drop dead, because he was fit as a fiddle, healthy. He smoked. No, he did not smoke, sorry. He did not smoke, and he certainly drank a lot less than I do. I smoke and drink. But I do it in moderation because I'm a health conscious guy, of course. But this man was the last person you would expect to kick the bucket by 40. 39, actually. But he did, right? So what good will all the money, all the capital that you've accumulated, what good will it do when you are dead? Sure, it will It will provide your children with a secure future. They will live comfortably for the rest of their lives, for sure. That's a noble thing, okay? You can leave a very, very comfortable you can leave a very good safety net for your children, and they will be pretty much set for life. That's good. That's good. But what was the point of it all for yourself? I'm not religious, so I don't believe in an afterlife, but what would have been the point of it all for yourself? You know, killing yourself in order to make more and more capital, but never stopping to smell the roses once in a while, right? So I'm not saying that one should be complacent. One should certainly strive to learn new things. One should certainly strive to improve himself or herself. But please, don't make pursuit of material creature comforts the central focus of your life. Because in the pursuit of these creature comforts, you forget to live, right? And as I've said, you can die tomorrow. You can die any day, right? And all the work that you did will be for naught, if you never ever stop to live and enjoy life. Well, it would have been good for your boss. I mean, it certainly would have been good for your boss and for your children, for your wife and children, or but for you, you've got to think about yourself as well. So I'm not saying that, to conclude, conscientiousness is not in itself a bad thing, but conscientiousness can certainly become toxic if you associate conscientiousness as the only way to determine a person's worth, and basically you only see your worth in how much you produce economically. That's when it becomes toxic, and that's when it starts, and when a need to change occurs. Thank you.